way if you multiply positive times positive, you're always going to end up with positive. So my first thought was, like you, there's no solution for this problem, just done in a slightly different way.
If we take a look at the next part of this question, it says determine the end behavior of g as x decreases without bound. Express your answer using the mathematical notation of a limit. Now, Jamil, I remember you talked a lot about this decreases without bound end behavior in our first session, so I'd like you to take this one for me.
Yeah, this is a flashback to our first session for sure. So again, let's attack this problem. Let's read it and try to translate it best we can. The first thing we see is we say determine the end behavior. Now, if you've been with us the entire time, you know that every time we're talking about determine the end behavior, we're talking about using a limit. Next, it's going to be about the function g. So we're determining the end behavior of g, and we're going to write that as g of x. And then finally in this statement, we got x decreasing without bound. So whenever x decreases without bound, that is another way of saying that x is going to negative infinity. So if we put that all together, what we're really saying is that we have the limit of g of x as x approaches negative infinity. So when we substitute our actual function in, the limit as x goes to negative infinity of 5.51 times 1.038 to the x, we know that this answer is going to be 0, and we can confirm that by taking a look at the graph that we've been using for this particular function. The next question here asks, is f an invertible 3 to the x? We know that this answer is going to be 0, and we can confirm that by taking a look at the graph that we've been using for this particular function.
Hey, what? Oh, decreases without bound. Yeah, it's 0.
The next question here asks, is f an invertible function? Quite simply, the answer is no. F is not invertible. And that's really all we need to say here. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, will I really get credit for that? The question asks a yes or no question. Is f invertible? I'm giving the answer as straightforward as I can. But never fear, there is going to be a follow up to a question like this pretty much every single time. And here's that next part. Give a reason for your answer based on the definition of a function and the table of values for f of x. Becky, I know you did a lot of work with us about invertible functions earlier. I'm going to turn this one over to you.
Sounds good to me. So let's do a quick recap from session 2. We know that on a specified domain, a function f has an inverse function or is invertible if each output value is mapped from a unique input value. So if we're thinking about this really simply, we just want to see if we have any repeated output values. So if you look at this table, you notice there's 2 input values where I have an output value of 5. Those input values are 2 and 12. So we already know this isn't invertible, but look at this still. We have another repeated output value. At an input value of 4 and 10, we have a repeated output value of -2. So if we go ahead and summarize this for our answer on the AP exam, we're going to say there are outputs of f that are not mapped to unique input values. And specifically, we can mention the fact that f of 2 equals f of 12, which is 5, and f of 4 equals f of 10, which is -2. Thank you guys so much for joining us for session 5. We've got 3 more FRQ videos coming up for you shortly.
Wait, did they?
Value of 5. Those input values are 2 and 12. So we already know this isn't invertible, but look at this still. We have another repeated. So if we go ahead and summarize this for our answer on the AP exam, we're going to say there are outputs of f that are not mapped.
Oh, wait a sec. Practice 7 session FRQ modeling periodic constant. Okay. Video 6. For this, I'm going to do the questions first. So if I'm going to do the questions first, it's probably better that I do a full screen on my...
Hi, everybody. It's Jamil Siddiqui here. I teach math at East Bridgewater.
Is it calculator allowed?
On the content.
To write 2 equations.
Okay. It's not calculator allowed.
that can be used to find the values for constants A and B in the expression for P of T. So one of the first things I noticed is all we're doing.
Well, I'm gonna take a piss and then come back. Ooh. All right, we are back at it again. All right, so a biologist began studying the impact of a biologist began studying the impact of conservation efforts on a certain species of animal in 2015. In 2015, t equals 0, the population was determined to be 230 animals. In t equals 2021, 6, t equals 6, the population increased to 580 animals. In t is greater than or equal to 0, the population of the species in a region can be modeled by the function p given by p of t equals a plus b. The population function p of p given by p of t equals where p of t is the population of years since 2015. Use the given data to write two equations which can be used to find the values of constants a and b in the expression p of t. So, plugging in 0, you can get 230 equals 230 plus equals a plus b. So wait, I got a math way really quick. Natural log of so if it's 0, natural log of 1 will evaluate. Our natural log of 1 is 0. So you can just say 230 equals A and then 230 is equals to A, and then you can say find the values of A and B as decimal approximations. A and B is decimal approximations. That means, oh, and then B is equals to, or 580 is equals to A plus B ln 1 plus 1 is 2. That is 2021. Or no, T equals 6, sorry. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay. So, are we allowed to use a calculator?
Is writing two equations. We don't actually have to find the values of A and B at this point in time. Now, when Jamil wrote the problem, I noticed that at a time value of 0, there's 230 animals. So I can write the expression that P of 0 has to be 230. And at T equals 6, we have 580 animals. So I can write the expression that P of 6 is equal to 580. My goal is to write an equation in the form of P of t equals A plus B ln of t plus 1. So when I substitute in a value of 0 for t, I should get an output value of 230. That will let me write my first equation. So 230 has to equal A plus B ln of 0 plus 1. My second equation I'll get from plugging in 6. And when I plug in 6, I should get an output value of 580. So I get 580 equals A plus B ln of 6 plus 1. And Jamil, I notice, I'll mention real fast, my 6 there looks really wonky. On your AP exam, guys, make sure you're writing clear for your AP readers because it's not your normal teacher who's reading this for you. So take that extra moment. Don't be like me and make a wonky 6 that looks like a B. Make sure you're writing clearly so that they can read what you intend for them to read. So now we can go ahead and jump into part 2. It says find the values for A and B as decimal approximations. So we already have that equation that 230 is equal to A plus B ln of, now it was 0 plus 1. I can simplify that to just 1. And then when I my second expression, I had 580 equals A plus B ln of, we had 6 plus 1. I can simplify that to 7. Now, Jamil, I have a feeling that one of these is going to be a little easier to work with or simplify first. Which one would you pick?
Yeah, I would go with that first one with that ln of 1 right there. I think that's going to be the easiest thing to work with because, ln of 1, we're looking for that exponent again. That's going to make our base 1. That ln of 1 is going to be 0.
That's right. So e to the what power gives me 1, e to the 0th power. I agree. So I can get rid of this term that multiplies to 0. So I already know that a equals 230. So now I can substitute that a value into my other equation. I have 580 is equal to 230 plus b ln of 7. I want to get that b value by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting that 230, and that's going to give me a 350. Now, Jamil, keep an eye on me. Sometimes I make arithmetic mistakes, so keep an eye on me here. So I've got b times ln of 7. And to isolate that b, I'm going to divide by ln of 7. So now I have b is equal to 350 divided by ln of 7. Now we have to be careful here. I have an exact value for b, but this question didn't ask for an exact value. It asked for b and a as decimal approximations. So this is something that I now need to type into my calculator.
Okay, so if this was a calculator problem, I would write 300. B equals to 179.864. Okay,
I type
I'm gonna do practice. Okay, question B. Alright, use the given data to find the average rate of change of the population in animals per year from t equals 0 to t equals 6. Use the given data to find the average rate of change of the population in animals per year from t equals 0 to t equals 6. Express your answer as a decimal approximation. Show the computations that lead to your answer. Okay, so it's just over 6. So 6 minus 0 is 580 minus 230. 580 minus 230. 580 minus 230 is 350 over 6, and 350 over 6, 350 divided by 6 is 58.3. So 58.3 going on forever in animals per year. Animals per year. Okay. And then 2. Oh, yeah, I should probably erase this and write it like a normal answer. Use the average rate of change found in I to estimate the population to the nearest whole number for t equals 8. So you start at, so it's y is equals to mx plus b, y is equals to mx. Mx is, or b is going to be plus 230. Oh. Or b is 230, so 58.3 x plus 230, and x is 8, so 58.3 times 8 plus 230, so 58.3 times 3 times 8, 466.4, 466.4 plus 230 plus 230, 696.4, 696.4 is equals to y. So, to the nearest whole number, so 696 animals to the nearest whole number, so 58, 58.0, 58.0, 58 times 8 plus 230 is 694. 464. 694. 694 animals. 3. Consider the average rates of change of P from t equals 6 to t equals n years, where n is greater than 6. Are these average rates of change less? Wait, are these rates of change less than or greater than the average rates? These rates of change are less than the average rate of change from t equals 0 to t equals 6 years. Or less because the logarithm function, because a logarithmic function slowly has a decreasing rate of change as x increases. And then C, consider the biologist determines that the region can sustain a maximum population of 800 animals. Explain how this information can be used to determine the domain limitation on the model P. So 800 is equals to 230 plus 179.864 times ln of x. Okay, is equals to 22 years. Okay. This information can be used to determine the domain restriction. But this information can be used to determine the domain restriction by limiting domain to 22.7 years. Okay, 22 years. Okay. Yeah, now I gotta watch the video.
type this into my calculator. I'm going to get a value of 179.864. And I'm going to go ahead and truncate that, or even if I round it, I get the same value here.
Why don't I take a shot at this next part, part B1? Use the given data to find the average rate of change of the population of animals per year from t equals 0 to t equals 6 years. Express your answer as a decimal approximation. Remember, show the computations that lead to your answer. So when I'm looking at this, I'm reminded of our earlier sessions when we were talking about the average rate of change. Keep in mind, the average rate of change is always
truncate that, or even if I round it, I get the
over 6 minus 0. We know the values of p of 6 and p of 0. That's going to be 580 and 230. So when we set that ratio up, we've got 580 minus 230 over 6 minus 0, which then turns into a decimal answer of 58.333.
Now, guys, on your AP exam, a lot of times you're going to start by just finding this average rate of change value. And then after that, you're going to imply, interpret, or use this in some way. So we're going to add a quick spin-off question for you quick here. It's going to be to interpret the meaning of your answer from part 1 in the context of the problem. So Jamil said, what we're really doing is a change in the output over a change in the input. And the output values are animals, and the input value is time in years. So what I have here is that on average, the population of animals increases by 58.333 animals per year. So every time on average that my t-value increases by 1, I'm increasing by 58.333 animals. So that's going to lead us right into our next question. So here's that B part 2. Let's give it a read. It says, use the average rate of change found in part 1 to estimate the population to the nearest whole number for t equals 8 years. Show the work
is f of b minus f of a over b minus a. So when we apply that average rate of change to this problem, we're talking about the function p. We're looking at p of 6 minus p of 0 over 6 minus 0. We know the values of p of 6 and p of 0. That's going to be 580 and 230. So when we set that ratio up, we've got 580 minus 230 over 6 minus 0, which then turns into a decimal answer of 58.333.
Now, guys, on your AP exam, a lot of times you're going to start by just finding this average rate of change value. And then after that, you're going to imply, interpret, or use this in some way. So we're going to add a quick spin-off question for you quick here. It's going to be to interpret the meaning of your answer from part 1 in the context of the problem. So Jamil said, what we're really doing is a change in the output over a change in the input. And the output values are animals, and the input change value. And then after that, you're going to imply, interpret, or use this in some way. So we're going to add a quick spin-off question for you quick here. It's going to be to interpret the meaning of your answer from part 1 in the context of the problem. So Jamil said, what we're really doing is a change in the output over a change change in the input. And the output values are animals, and the input value is time in years. So what I have here is that on average, the population of animals increases by 58.333 animals per year. So every time on average that my t-value increases by 1, I'm increasing by 58.333 animals. So that's going to lead us right into our next question. So here's that B part 2. Let's give it a read. It says, use the average rate of change found in part 1 to estimate the population to the nearest whole number for t equals 8 years. Show the work that leads to your answer. So as a quick reminder, there's a couple of pieces of information we already have. We already know that at time 0, we have 230 animals, and we know that time 6, we have 580 animals. We also learned from the previous spin-off question that we did that the average rate of change gave us 58.333 animals per year. That means every time my t value increases by 1, we're increasing by 58.333 animals. So to kind of simplify this problem a little bit, if I want to find an approximation for p of 8, I need to have a starting value first. And you can choose either p of 0 or p of 6. I'm going to use p of 6 here, so that value of 580, because it's a little closer to where we're trying to get. So I've got p of 6 as my initial or my starting value for this particular problem. To get from times 6 to times 7, I would need to add that 58.33 once, because as I increase by 1 year, I'm increasing on average by 58.333 animals. And then to get to time 8, I need to add that 58.333 one more time. So if I add that average rate of change 2 times, that will give me an approximation for p of 8. If I go ahead and type that into my calculator, remember we know that p of 6 is about is 580. I add on that 58.333 twice, and that gives me to a value of 696.666 ... if I'm using my exact value from earlier. Now remember, this question is actually asking us to do this to the nearest whole number, so I can't leave my answer like this. If we were to round to the nearest whole number, we would leave this answer as 697 animals. But I could also see us leaving this as 696 because we have that partial animal there. So in either case, you get full credit if you left this as 696 or 697.
Becky, thank you for reading part 2 of that problem.
696 or 600.
Yeah, 696.
Becky, thank you for reading part 2 of that problem. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at part 3? In this part, we're asked to consider the average rates of change from p from t equals 6 to t equals n years. And we're told that n is going to be greater than 6 for this. Are these average rates of change less than or greater than the average rate of change from t equals 0 to t equals 6 years found in part 1? Explain your reasoning. Now, before we jump to this, I'd love to go back and do a rapid review. So let's take a look at this next slide, where we're going to do the rapid review on exponential functions. Because the output values of exponential functions in general form are proportional over equal length input value intervals, exponential functions are always increasing or always decreasing, and their graphs are always concave up or always concave down. What that means is if you know you got an exponential function that exhibits increasing behavior in one place, it's going to be increasing for its entire domain. And the same is true if it's concave up in one place, concave up for the entire domain. And the converse of that will also be true. Now, let's think about the inverse, the logarithmic function. Now remember, how are these related? These are reflected over the line y equals x compared to what we just saw. So because they're the inverse function of exponentials, logarithmic functions are also always increasing or always decreasing, and their graphs are either always concave up or always concave down. With that information at your fingertips, Becky, why don't you go ahead and try to take a look at this question and take us through it.
So guys, as a reminder, you have a graphing calculator for this. So one of the things you can do is actually look at the graph for this function. And you'll notice that our function is logarithmic and it's also increasing. And this is partially in part due to the fact that the leading coefficient or the coefficient for my logarithmic term is positive, and then the coefficient for the t is positive as well. But because p is logarithmic and increasing, our graph here is going to be concave down. Because it's concave down, we actually know that as t increases, the average rates of change are going to be decreasing over equal length input value intervals. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in our upcoming session. This means then that the average rates of change from t equals 6 to t equals n are less than the average rate of change from t equals 0 to t equals 6. Jamil, I think we've got one more part. Do you want to take this one for us?
Sure, Becky, I'll handle this one. In this last part, part C, the biologist determines that the region can sustain a maximum population of 800 animals. Explain how this information can be used to determine the domain limitations for the model P. Well, one thing to keep in mind in this problem is that we're given that maximum population, right? So we know that no matter what, we're not going to go above an output value of 800. To me, that says, let's find out where our model predicts we're going to have 800 animals. So we're going to set P of T equal to 800. Now, from our previous sessions, we've talked about how we can use our technology to help us. One of the great functions we have on that calculator is that intersect function, where we can draw two graphs and find out where they cross. So using our technology, we can see that from this graph, those two functions are going to intersect at the input value 22.785. So taking that information and thinking about what it means for our problem, we are going to say that since 800 is the maximum sustainable population of the animals, and because P of T is an increasing function where P of that intersection value, 22.784 equals 800, that the domain for this particular function is going to be 0 to 22.784. And Becky, if I remember correctly, when I did this on the calculator, that's the truncated answer, right? I think if we rounded this, you also could have gotten an answer of 22.785 as well.
That's exactly right, Jamil.
Speaking on behalf of me and Becky, it's been great working with you guys. And we look forward to seeing you guys when we tackle free response question number 3.
Okay. Okay, that's all the videos for the quiz tomorrow. I'm gonna go again, come back, and then do something else. Okay.
Sister Mary Glowray is a remarkable woman whose life and work have inspired many. Her incredible journey and the lasting impact she made.
What are you saying? How to make the Vinci result run video from graph.
Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this new video, we're going to take a look to one very interesting.
Okay.
And in the other side, we're going to use Adele Latitude 55. Going to use it. I will show you how to activate the GPU capabilities before starting the video. To just start DaVinci Resolve, start a new project and go to the DaVinci Resolve tab and go to Preferences directly, very straightforward. And then go to Memory and GPU, and in Memory and GPU you will find already the settings that probably DaVinci Resolve already identified as best when you install the software. So this is going to be probably GPU processing mode. Here you can
Memory and GPU.
select from CUDA over, and then go. I mean, it's look okay, and that's how we're going to use it. I will show you how to activate the GPU capabilities before starting the video. To just start DaVinci Resolve, start a new project and go to the DaVinci Resolve tab and go to Preferences directly, very straightforward, and then go to Memory and GPU, and in Memory and GPU
Wait.
directly, very straightforward, and then go to Memory and go to Preferences directly, the DaVinci Resolve tab.
Oh. Preferences. Memory.
Go to Preferences directly, very straightforward, and then go to Memory and GPU, and in Memory and GPU you will find already the settings that probably DaVinci Resolve already identified as best when you install the software. So this is going to be probably GPU processing mode. Here you can select from CUDA or OpenCL, depending on if you had an NVIDIA graphics card, you can select CUDA, but you can also select OpenCL. And if you have an AMD Radeon graphics card, maybe the graphics card because NVIDIA RTX 5000, and DaVinci Resolve is not even letting me choose the integrated graphics card because probably it's just to be much better using the NVIDIA graphics card. But yeah, this is pretty straightforward. Just go recommend you, for example.
Yeah, so
From the newest generation, it's pretty.
Sister Mary Glowray is a remarkable woman whose life and work have inspired many. Her incredible journey and the lasting impact she made on healthcare in India is a story worth sharing. A humanitarian, advocate for women's rights, and a systems thinker, Mary devoted her life to improving health.
okay, you know what I need to do? I need to render this. I need to render this, and then from the render I can figure out what images are blurry and what's not blurry. Because otherwise I won't be able to know, if you know what I'm saying. Because apparently some of the images are extremely blurry. So, we can do that. Bro, okay, so DaVinci Resolve uses my graphics card, but Blender does not. I'll go get some water until then. wanna go potty? My dog wants to go potty. Okay, let's go potty. Let's go potty. Okay, so it's completed. So, hey, no. There, no.
Sister Mary Glowray is a remarkable woman whose life and work have inspired many. Her incredible journey and the lasting impact she made on healthcare in India is a story worth sharing. A humanitarian.
Okay, so this image is extremely blurry. This block here.
Mary devoted her life to improving healthcare in India.
Okay, so we're gonna have to replace this image here with another one. I just need to figure out what image that shall be. If my Gmail loads, which it's not loading for whatever reason, the internet's bad, obviously. Alright, so John Matthew Oh, bro, the internet's so slow. Ah, it's actually so slow. Okay, okay. Um, okay, low resolution. That means we need to find the pictures. Okay, here's the pictures. Hmm. 18 Graven Bangalore. Alright, what's the next picture? Okay. What we can do. Alright, so what we can do is use a colored picture. Like this one. Let's see what this is. Well, I'm using my second monitor, so you probably can't even see what I'm doing right now. But my internet's so bad, bro. Wait. Let's download this image. It's definitely gonna take a while because it's so slow. Holy. Nothing's loading, bro. Let's see if this works. Dang, my internet's so slow. So slow. See how long the image takes to download? Oh, it's a pretty big image. Okay, I'm gonna do something for 2 minutes. Bro, the image is still downloading, bro. Oh my. Okay, here, let's just get rid of this image. What we can do is, can we add transitions even if there's nothing? Alright, so far we've been doing, what transitions have we been doing? Dip to color, smooth cut. Okay, smooth cut. Okay. Color. Okay, that's just getting it ready for the image. And then when the image comes, I'll put it in and okay. Let's see if it's down. Okay, so it's downloaded. What we can do is, oh, it gets rid of the transition anyway. Dip to color, smooth cut.
A humanitarian, advocate for women's rights.
Okay, we can slowly zoom in on this. Boom, that's a bookmark.
Where she expands.
Alright, I'm gonna take a break.